Liana and Leora, identical 10-year-old twins, lived in a peaceful countryside town where life was simple, slow, and full of faith. The sisters grew up in a warm Christian family, spending most of their childhood inside their small white church at the end of the village road. Every Sunday, they sang in the choir, their voices blending so perfectly that older women in the congregation often said, "These two were born with God's whisper in their voices." The twins prayed together, practiced together, and dreamed together. Although their voices were angelic, the girls had never performed outside their humble community. Their world was small: school, home, church. But the way they sang held something powerful. Their pastor, a gentle man who had served the community for decades, often told their parents, God gave them something rare. The world needs to hear them. One day, their parents received an announcement online: auditions for America's Got Talent were open. The idea felt impossible, two small-town girls, on one of the biggest stages in the world. But when Liana found her mother praying quietly with the AGT page open on her phone, something stirred in her tiny heart. "Mama," she whispered, "God will be with us." Leora nodded firmly. After days of discussing and praying as a family, they decided to take the step. The girls packed their little suitcases, holding their matching silver crosses. When they arrived at the AGT venue, the massive building, bright spotlights, and overwhelming crowds made their hearts race. Crew members rushed around them, performers warmed up their voices, and cameras flashed non-stop. Despite the chaos, the girls squeezed each other's hands and whispered their usual prayer. "God, let us sing for you." This moment marked the beginning of a journey they never expected. The stage doors opened, and Liana and Leora stepped into a world unlike anything they had ever seen. The AGT stage was enormous, glowing with bright colors, cameras sweeping the audience, and judges seated behind an illuminated table. Thousands of faces stared at them, waiting. The twins walked to the center, their matching white dresses shimmering softly under the lights. Their identical braids, identical shoes, identical nervous smiles, the audience instantly fell silent. There was something pure about them, something that softened the entire theater. Simon Cowell leaned forward, curious and slightly amused. "How old are you girls?" "We're 10. "And what are your names?" They answered in perfect harmony, making the judges smile. "And what will you be doing for us today?" "We will sing a Christian worship song," Liana said softly. "We want to share hope," Leora added. The audience responded with warm applause. Some people even nodded, touched by their sincerity. As the intro music began, soft piano chords echoing across the hall, the sisters closed their eyes. A deep breath. A quick squeeze of hands. And then, the first note. Their voices emerged like crystal light, soft but powerful, gentle yet filled with emotion. They sang as if they were alone in their tiny church back home. The entire theater transformed, the restless audience fell into complete silence. A cameraman backstage lowered his camera for a moment, stunned. Their harmonies intertwined flawlessly, the kind of unity that only identical twins could produce. Each note seemed to carry peace, warmth, and an emotion that felt much older than their age. By the time they reached the middle of the song, even Simon's expression had softened. This wasn't just talent. It was purity. It was grace. It was something the AGT stage had never heard before. The music gently lifted as the twins transitioned into the song's most emotional passages. Their eyes remained closed, their voices rising in perfect synchronization. It felt as if the entire auditorium had stepped into a sacred moment. Their harmonies wrapped around each listener like a warm embrace. People in the audience leaned forward, realizing they were not witnessing an ordinary performance. A woman in the front row clasped her hands to her chest. A young man wiped his eyes. Ushers at the back stood still, forgetting their duties for a moment. Liana took the melody, her voice soft but filled with heavenly clarity. Leora followed with soaring harmonies that created a shimmering, ethereal effect. The two voices blended so flawlessly that it sounded like a choir, not two children. The theater lights subtly shifted, casting a gentle golden glow over the stage, making them appear angelic. Even though everything around them was grand and loud, the girls remained humble, their tiny hands resting near their hearts, their expressions serene. The more they sang, the more the atmosphere transformed. It didn't feel like a talent show anymore. It felt like worship. It felt like peace. It felt like a moment divinely placed. When they reached the climax, the twins lifted their voices with a strength that shocked the judges. The final high note was long, pure, and bright, the kind of note that sends chills down a person's spine. A moment of silence followed. Not because people didn't want to clap, but because no one wanted the feeling to end. Then the theater erupted. Cheering. Crying. Standing. Even the lights seemed brighter. The girls opened their eyes slowly, surprised and overwhelmed. They looked at each other, tears forming, realizing they had done something extraordinary. Their song had touched every heart in the room. Before the applause even faded, Heidi Klum wiped her cheeks openly. "That was beautiful. So beautiful," she whispered. Sofia Vergara pressed a hand to her heart, unable to speak for several seconds. Howie Mandel turned toward the audience as if asking them to confirm what he just witnessed. The crowd roared back in agreement. Simon Cowell, however, remained silent longer than usual. He leaned forward with elbows on the table, staring at the twins with an expression no one could easily read. When Simon went quiet, the world listened. Finally, he took a deep breath. "I have judged thousands of singers, thousands of choirs, duets, kids, adults, but this," he paused, voice tightening. "This felt like a prayer. It felt like something healing." The twins' faces flushed with emotion. Their parents backstage held each other, sobbing with joy. Crew members around them clapped, some wiping tears. The audience chanted, "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" But Simon wasn't finished. "You too," he continued softly, "brought something this stage rarely sees: purity, faith, and a connection that cannot be taught. It's a gift." The girls bowed their heads, overwhelmed. They had expected nothing more than applause, never this. All four judges then stood up, giving them a standing ovation. The audience followed, the entire theater on its feet. Some people raised their hands like in worship. Others hugged their neighbors. A moment of unity filled the room, the kind that only true, heartfelt music can create. The twins looked out at the sea of people standing for them and felt something warm rise in their chests. They had sung for God, not for fame. And yet here they were, touching thousands. What was coming next, they could never have imagined. The chanting grew louder. "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" The girls stood trembling, unsure if they deserved such a moment. Simon glanced at the other judges, then back at the twins. "Girls," he said gently, "some moments on this show stay with me forever. This is one of them." He stood up slowly. The audience gasped. The twins' eyes widened. Simon raised his hand, and slammed it down. Boom! The golden buzzer exploded. A waterfall of golden confetti flooded the stage, sparkling under the lights. The twins covered their faces, crying and laughing at the same time. They had never even imagined this moment, not in their wildest dreams. Their parents rushed from backstage, running to hold them. Their mother knelt, hugging both girls tightly as gold rained around them. Their father placed his hands on their shoulders, whispering, "God is proud of you." The audience cried, clapped, shouted, worshipped. Phones recorded the magical scene, a moment that would spread across the world within hours. Simon walked onto the stage and knelt beside them, something he rarely did. "You didn't just sing," he told them softly. "You lifted this entire room." Backstage, producers were already predicting the clip would break viewership records. Churches, families, and Christian communities around the world would soon share it. It would become known as the greatest Christian duet ever performed on AGT. As the confetti continued to fall, the twins held hands, overwhelmed. They weren't thinking about fame or success. They thought only one thing. God, let us shine His light. And in that moment, with golden sparkles around them, the world agreed.